Everyone, and welcome to part 5 of my Kitbash of Mirage's 1/35th scale C7P Polish artillery tractor. As you can see from this short video, the internal works have now been fully painted, weathered, and in this video we're going to have a look at the techniques used to create this look. So feel free to grab yourself a chair and let's go do some modelling. First thing I had to do was to complete the underside of the model. I only had a couple of grainy black and white photos to use as reference material, so I drew as much of the details I possibly could, and then made an effort to transfer that onto the back using plasticard and plastic strip. Accuracy I do not know, but it certainly looks a lot better than what it was and represents the photos pretty well. So I was quite pleased with how that turned out, and as you can see, several 0.8mm and 0.6mm rivets were used to detail the underside. So once that was complete, I was now able to crack on and do the painting. Now a lot of people ask me how do I go about the preparation stages. So let's just have a look at some of the processes that I used. The first thing is obviously to make sure that they're secure for painting, and it's a very simple process of adding cocktail sticks to the part where it's not going to be seen, so that when you do attach the cocktail sticks with the glue, you can quite easily cut it off at the end and nobody will be able to know that you'd put it in there. And it's just a matter of using recycled cocktail sticks from other builds, adding a dab of super glue and putting it into the hole that you've made with the small drill bit. Once that's dry, that will all be ready to paint. I used two types of stands. This one here is the polystyrene one, but I have recently made myself some cardboard ones. So let's have a look at how those were put together. It's quite a simple process. Just a matter of getting some corrugated cardboard, cutting it into strips to the size that you require, stick a couple of strips together using sellotape, and then put those pairs of corrugated strips together and wrap it all around with a bit of duct tape, and you've got a nice solid base. And this holder can take the slightly thicker rods with the clips on, or just the normal cocktail sticks. So just transferring it over, show you how well that goes together. The one thing I will say is make sure that the height and depth suits the covering that you put over to protect it from the dust, because the last thing you want to do is to make it too high and your cover doesn't fit. So once that process is complete, it's a matter of starting to clean it. I just use normal tepid water, a little cocktail stick with a bit of foam on the end. There's some cotton bud type ones as well, and it's just a matter of just giving it a good clean as best as you possibly can, bearing in mind that these are delicate, so don't go too heavy handed because you don't want to be taking off all that hard work. Now there will be instances possibly where glue stains or bits of grime that doesn't want to come off, and in that particular instance I'll actually revert to using some lighter fuel. Obviously be very careful when using that. Now for those of you who follow my builds, you'll know that I've been using lots of different types of red oxide primer. So on this particular one I've decided to use Mr. Hobby one. It's just a matter of decanting it. It's quite a simple process. Just stick a straw onto the nozzle and just get yourself a container that's airtight once you've done, because obviously you don't want it to dry out. And I was really impressed with this stuff. It was very much like the MRP red oxide primer, where it does stink quite a bit, but the coverage is excellent and it is very hard wearing. But again, the issue is that smell. So my top three really are this one, the MRP, and the Tamiya one. But I'm probably going to stick with the Tamiya one purely and simply because of the smell that it doesn't give off like the other two, and it's a little bit easier to clean the airbrush out with. But I was pleased with the result. Next I had to decide on the colour scheme, and as you know, if you've been following along, I've gone for the 3-tone camo scheme. I like to use Vallejo acrylics, and these are the three that I chose to represent the camouflage scheme. Also, I invested in a Sharpie pen, and this will be used to create the black line between each colour. And as you can see here from the base, it's gone on particularly well. I used the hairspray method to create the chips coming through, as you can see there. And I also did a little bit of touch-ups here and there with a bit of metal paints as well, just to add a bit of interest. And as you can see on the underside of the body, we have the leather straps for the rifles, and also the first aid kit sign. A little bit of damage there on the paint, but that's all going to be covered up, so there was no issues there at all. And then what all that left was doing all the fine detailing on each of the small parts. Here with the radiators, it was a matter of using metallic paints, and also doing some dry brushing with lighter metallic paints, and the effect was very good here. This was better represented with the next two parts, as you can see, with the rivets and the welds. And this is one of my particular favourite ones. I thought that came out really well indeed. Again, dry brushing the lighter colours, as well as highlighting each of the rivet heads. There we have the gear stick, very straightforward. I used a bit of cam black brown just to create the shadows where the gear stick goes into the part. Here we have some accessories. This is a Polish tanker's hat. That was done with green and black. The exhaust, the usual way of using different exhaust washes. And very nice effect that came out. And that will be further enhanced later with the oils. This is the panel where the foot pedals are. Again, some metallic paint and metallic black. Fire extinguisher, I always usually go for a dark grey and then sponge on a sort of blue light grey on top for that nice mottled effect. And the fuel tanks there were highlighted with an aluminium metallic paint. There we have the engine. Nice work and detail was done there. Try to add as much colour as I possibly can onto the engine. As you can see, there was a baby blue section across the middle, again just to spice it up a bit. The exhaust on this side was light grey, splattered with dark rust, and so I was really pleased with how all of that came out. This is the jack, again metallics, and then given a dark rust wash. And now for the wheels. These are done with dark rubber and again metallic paint for the hubs. Very pleased with how those came out. The seats, again, this was brown leather work, dark brown leather, highlighted with light brown leather, a touch of orange in there as well, just to represent some wear and tear, and then given a dark smoke wash at the end to put it all together. So really pleased how they turned out. These are the wheel bogies. Again, this gives you an idea of the two-tone camo scheme that we're going to have. And here we have the effect of actually using the Sharpie pen. So that was a little bit of a practice job before I do it on the main body itself. So pleased with how that's all gone. As for the wheels, these have just been basically hairsprayed and chipped. Further work with the metallic teeth will be done further down the line. As far as the rear idler goes, I've actually done the wearing with the metallic paint already, and again, as you can see, the chipping's been done. This was the dashboard. Had a lot of fun with this. I like to add a bit of colour, as I said to my models. The actual decals, they come from an old Spitfire kit, and really pleased how that's come out. That looks really nice now. Now what we're going to do is apply 2 coats of matte varnish before we start the weathering process, and once that's fully dry, what I'll do is apply a raw umber filter. So basically just put a little bit of oil in the bottom, and what we're after is a consistency like dirty liquid. I like to use the zest thinner purely and simply because it smells of oranges, and I've had no issues with using this thinner over the years. Looking about a 9-to-1 ratio as far as the mix goes. What you need to do is get yourself an old brush, mix it all up until you're happy with the actual consistency. And like I say, it's just a really a sort of like a dirty water consistency that you're after. And then get another brush and start applying it to the model. Once you have applied it, feel free to do it in a haphazard manner. But once you have applied it, go back and just make sure there's no pooling of any of the wash anywhere. Then what we do is going to have a look at the simple process of how we build up dirt to get that sort of thick look using different pigments. So first off, you need to get some thinner, moisten your brush, take off most of the thinner, and then apply it to the area just to make it damp basically before you add on the pigment. And in this particular case we're going to use some dark pigments from Vallejo, and you just need to just dab it on in a haphazard motion. And as I said already, this process you will repeat over the whole of the hull area to create an overall look. And then once you've done that, get yourself sort of a dark brown, maybe Van Dyke brown oil wash, just to secure all of the pigment in place. And as you can see, this is the whole of the hull done in using that particular process. And then it's a matter of just waiting for it to dry and do some little bit of blending in here and there until you're happy with the actual look. Now what we're going to do is add another pigment. Now there's no need to lay down any thinner this time, because otherwise you'll take off all the good work that you've done. So just simply apply some brown pigments, and then get yourself some sepia, use it as a wash, and then apply that as a pin wash, and that way, as you will see, it will spread out and that will seal the brown that you have just brown pigment that you've just added to the hull area. Next, what I want to do is to create that real dirty, dark, grimy look, possibly a little bit damp from some of the water that's got into the lower hull. So what we do is put a line of thick pigment, and then we'll get a wash of MIG oil along with AK Wet Effects, and just mix those two together until you create a nice wash of the two colours. And then again, very carefully, because you don't want to apply too much pressure. You want the capillary action to work here and to run through, and just dab it down as much as you possibly can, and that will create the wet look effect that you're after. You can also add a few little spots here and there around the base, and also at the back of the hull as well. I did a couple of areas, and I thought it came out really well. It looks very realistic. Next, I started doing a pin wash with Van Dyke brown around the sides of the hull, and then once that's been done, it's just a matter of getting your blending brush and blending that in. As you can see here, that's now been done. Now, I wasn't very happy with the areas where the seats went. Didn't do a good job of that at all with the chipping. So we're going to try and enhance that and this time we're going to be using a combination of dark pigments from MIG and from AK, and just mix them all up until you get the consistency that you're happy with. And again, using the thinners, just moisten the area where you want to put the pigment on. And then just get an old brush with a lump of pigment and just basically scrub it into the area and get full coverage across. And then we're going to get ourselves a raw umber pin wash and just gently go around the areas and sealing it all in. And there we go. As you can see, I've added some darker pigments on top as well, and just keep layering it. And I also added a little bit of dark steel pigment in there as well. So a lot better look than what it was before. So as you can see, this is the lower hull now completed as far as all the pigment work. You'll see some of the white patches on the sides where I've just done some shading with lighter colours, just to add a little bit of wear and tear. So with the that work done, what we now need to do is to rebuild the interior. So first of all, we put in the first half of the transmission unit. All went in very well indeed. And there's the second half. Do it in stages, let the glue dry. Don't rush this process because it will cause a lot of problems. Next was the driver's area. This is one of my favourite parts of the build. I've really enjoyed how that all came out, blended in really well together. Next we have the seating area. The seats caused me a lot of problems. Because obviously we had a tight fit of the engine, which you can see here. Different colours, weathering, again using the similar methods that I used on the lower hull to build up the depth of dirt and grime and dust all around. And the exhaust was given a coat of sienna as well. So with the seats in place, as you see, one of the seats is down purely and simply to add a bit of interest to the viewer, and also I've put the driver's hat in between the two seats as well to add a bit of interest. And the engine fitted in nicely once I'd moved all the chairs again. And then the radiators would fit on the end of the engine here. And that join went really well. I was very pleased how that went together. Then it was a matter of kitting out the rear hull. Make the most of this because this is the last time you see it. Because obviously once the top of the hull goes on, none of this will be seen again. But it was very enjoyable. Really enjoyed the look. As you can see, you got a little toolbox in there, a little crank handle, the fire extinguishers now put in. It is a shame to cover it all up, but yeah, it was nice. I enjoyed doing that part of the build. So there we go. That's all complete now. So I'll leave you with a few photos so you can see a little bit more of the detailing. It leaves me just to say thank you very much indeed for your continued support of my work. Big thank you to all of my subscribers as well. Very encouraging and very supportive, so many thanks for that. You will see a small video at the end where you'll see that I've actually put the upper hull now on top of the lower hull, and in the next video we'll be finishing this build up with the camo scheme and adding on a few more bits of detail here and there. So just leaves me to say thanks very much and happy modelling.